What would you do if your husband threw you out into the freezing cold with your 10-day-old newborn twins? Because he believed a lie. Imagine standing alone in the middle of the night, bleeding, exhausted, holding your babies in your arms, while the people you trusted most call your children illegitimate and slam the door in your face. They thought you were helpless. They thought you were poor. They thought they had destroyed your life. But there was one thing they didn't know. The woman they humiliated that night secretly owned the very house they kicked her out of, and a fortune worth billions. What happened next wasn't just revenge. It was a masterclass in justice that left everyone speechless. Stay until the end, because this incredible story proves that sometimes the people who underestimate you make the biggest mistake of their lives. This story is a powerful reminder to know your worth. Never let others define your value. And remember that your greatest comeback often begins at your darkest moment. If you enjoy inspiring stories of resilience, justice, and unforgettable comebacks, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to support the channel and help us bring you more stories like this. Finally, please remember, this content has been carefully researched, crafted, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful insights, valuable life lessons, and an engaging storytelling experience for our audience.
Imagine this. It is the dead of night, and the air is a painful 28 degrees. A mother is standing on a dark, icy porch, holding her twin sons who are only 10 days old. Look at this, Sarah. We know everything. These DNA results prove it. How could you lie? She pleads it is not true, please. Her mother-in-law then screams that her newborn children are illegitimate. Then her husband, the man she promised her life to, shoves her out into the cold. They believe she was poor and alone. All she had was $43 in her purse, or so they thought. What they did not know was that she owned the very house they just kicked her out of. She also owned a massive portfolio of commercial real estate in the city. She is a billionaire who has been pretending to be poor for the last 4 years. She did it all to find someone who would love her for who she was. But on that night, the game was over. Revenge she is about to deliver is so calculated, so legal, and so incredibly satisfying. You will have a hard time believing this is a true story. If you have ever felt the sharp pain of betrayal, you need to hear this. If you have ever been completely underestimated or thrown away by the very people who were supposed to love you, then you have to watch this until the very end. Believe me, you need to see how this billionaire made them regret every single thing they did. And if you are a fan of revenge stories where justice is finally served, please hit that like button right now. Leave a comment telling me what you would have done in her place, and subscribe so you do not miss more stories just like this one. You will be shocked by what happens next. This story is about more than just getting even. It is a powerful lesson about knowing your own worth. It is about never letting anyone else decide your value. And it is about the amazing strength that lives inside every woman who has been told she is nothing. This story will show you that your lowest point can be the start of your greatest comeback. You deserve to know that no matter how bad things seem, you have the power to rise up again. Let me take you back to how this whole thing began. Let me take you back to how this whole thing began. The front door slammed shut behind me. I was left standing on the porch in the middle of the night on December 23rd, 2024. I held my 10-day-old twin boys in my arms, and both of them were crying loudly. The temperature was a freezing 28 degrees. I was only wearing the thin pajamas the hospital gave me, which I was bleeding through. My mother-in-law had just spit right in my face. Her last hateful words echoed in my ears. Take those bastards and get out of here forever. My own husband, the man who promised to love me for the rest of his life, was the one who pushed me out the door. He turned his back on me and went back inside. I heard the lock click, a sound that felt so final. A second later, the porch light turned off, leaving my sons and me in complete darkness. They thought I had nothing, just $43 in my purse. The one thing the Mitchell family did not know was that I owned the house they just threw me out of. I also owned the other 22 houses on that street, the company Ryan worked for, and half of all the commercial buildings in Greenville, North Carolina. My name is Sarah Blake. I am a 32-year-old billionaire who spent the last 4 years pretending to be broke. This is the story of the most painful betrayal of my life, and the story of how I made them pay for every single second of it. If you have ever been looked down on, betrayed by the people who were supposed to love you, or tossed aside like garbage. You need to see how this ends. Because what I did next was something they never ever could have predicted. Let's go back to where this story really starts. 4 years ago, I was known as Catherine Sarah Blake. And yes, I am a Blake from Blake Holdings. At the age of 28, I became a billionaire overnight when I took my parents' struggling software company public. My parents, Andrew and Catherine Blake, started a small software business for property managers in Boston back in 1995. It was a simple tool to help landlords track rent and maintenance requests. In 2017, they died when their private jet went down in a storm. They never came home. I was only 25 years old, and I inherited a company that was drowning in $3 million of debt. It was losing more money every single month. Everyone I knew told me to sell it, to liquidate the assets and just walk away. But I could not do it. It was the only piece of my parents I had left. So, I stopped sleeping. I started working 100 hours a week. I taught myself how to code artificial intelligence, completely remade the entire platform from the ground up. I created Blake OS, an artificial intelligence that could predict building maintenance, figure out the best rental prices, and run entire property systems without any human help. By 2020, we had contracts with management companies in 43 states. In March of that year, our company went public. I officially became a billionaire at 28 years old. Forbes magazine called me the prop tech princess. Fast Company said I was a genius. I had everything anyone could ever dream of, but I felt completely empty. That is because 6 months before we went public, I found out my fiancé, Marcus, had a secret plan to marry me. Planned to file for divorce right away and try to take half of my entire fortune. He and his lawyer had been plotting for months. They created fake documents, and he was going to claim he was a key part of the company's success. He almost succeeded. We uncovered his scheme just 3 days before our wedding. The criminal trial that followed was a complete nightmare. The media treated it like a circus. My face was on the cover of every tabloid, with headlines like Tech Harris targeted by gold-digging fiancé. I was on the witness stand for 6 days. In the end, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison for fraud and attempted grand theft. But a part of me shattered during that trial. My ability to trust anyone was gone. I stopped dating. I lost all hope that someone could love me for me, not for my money. People only saw my bank account. They only cared about what I could give them. 2021, I made a drastic decision. I moved to Greenville, North Carolina, a nice-sized city where nobody would know who I was. I invented a new background story. I told people my name was Sarah Blake, a freelance copywriter. I said my parents had passed away and left me a small insurance policy of $100,000. I told people it was just enough to buy a small condo. That was my cover story. My lawyer, David Harrison, and my personal assistant, Emma Rodriguez, were the only 2 people on earth who knew my real identity. I put them in charge of my actual life, from the board meetings and investments to managing my entire empire. While I tried to live like a normal person, all I wanted was to find out if someone could fall in love with the regular Sarah. The Sarah who was a writer. The Sarah who drove a used Honda Civic. The Sarah who used coupons at the grocery store and worried about her power bill being too high. I just wanted to be valued as a person, not as a walking, talking bank account. I met Ryan Mitchell in September of 2021. At a charity event for the Greenville Public Library. I went because I have always loved libraries. They were my safe place when I was a kid. He was there as a weekend volunteer, reading stories to children. He even spoke. He was reading Where the Wild Things Are to a group of 6-year-olds. He did all the monster voices and had them roaring with laughter. He was so gentle and patient. He never once glanced at his phone. He was completely in the moment with those kids. When we finally had a chance to talk, he asked me what I did for a living. I told him I was a copywriter. He just smiled and said, "That's cool. I'm in property management. It's not very exciting, but it pays the bills." He did not try to impress me. He did not brag about himself at all. He asked me questions about my life, and he actually listened to my answers. We got coffee after the event was over. That coffee turned into a dinner date the next week, and then a movie. Slowly and very carefully, I let myself start to have feelings for him. Of course, I had Emma run a full background check on him. I am not a fool. Ryan Mitchell came back completely clean. He had no criminal record, he paid his taxes, he had no debt other than his student loans, and he had a good credit score. He worked at a company called Hudson Property Management. In a strange twist, that company was actually owned by one of my own holding companies. It was hidden under so many layers of corporations that not even Ryan's own boss knew who the real owner was. I watched him for 6 months before we officially started dating. Have you ever had to deal with a family that seemed determined to tear you down? I met a man who felt like a dream come true, but his family was a living nightmare. Stay with me to find out what happens when a secret billionaire has finally had enough. After my last relationship, I needed to be absolutely certain, and Ryan felt completely genuine. He always insisted on paying for our dates, even when I knew money was tight for him. He remembered the smallest things I mentioned in passing. When my anxiety made me pull away, he was patient and kind. He never once pressured me. After a year together, I almost told him my secret more than a dozen times. But each time I opened my mouth, I would picture Marcus. I would see the cold, calculating look in his eyes the second he found out I knew about his greedy plan. That chilling emptiness stopped me every time. And we built a life that I truly believed was real. On Thanksgiving of 2022, Ryan invited me to his family's home. The warning signs were everywhere, and I should have seen them. The Mitchell house was a simple home in a modest neighborhood. It looked nice, with a well-kept lawn and an American flag by the door. Barbara Mitchell opened it, wearing a dress that was way too formal for a holiday dinner. Her perfume was so strong it arrived a few seconds before she did. "So you are Sarah," she said, looking me up and down like I was a piece of used furniture. "Ryan has told us so much about you." The way she emphasized the words so made it clear he had told them very little. Inside, Tom Mitchell was placing plates on the table. He was a quiet man who barely even looked at me. Melissa was there with her husband at the time, Derek. She gave me a hug, but it was the stiff kind, the kind where you keep your body as far away as possible. She leaned in and whispered, "Your outfit is so cute. Did you find it at Target?" It was definitely not a compliment. Dinner was painfully awkward. Barbara started her questioning immediately. "Where are you from?" "I grew up near Boston." "Oh, how fancy," she said. "And what about your family?" "They passed away several years ago." "Oh," she paused for dramatic effect. "Did they leave you anything?" Ryan quickly cut in, "Mom, please stop." "What?" "It is a perfectly reasonable question. I am just trying to get to know her," she said. Next, she asked about my job. When I told her I was a freelance copywriter, she let out a small, dismissive laugh. "You are one of those work-from-home people. That must be so nice and flexible," she said, pausing for a moment. "It is not exactly a real career, is it? Manages to pay all my bills." "Well, that is good," she said, "because Ryan's paycheck is not going to be enough for a family of 4. As if it were a funny joke, but it was not. Melissa then pointed at my wrist. "Beautiful bracelet. Is that real silver?" The bracelet was actually platinum and had cost me $12,000. It was a gift I bought for myself, but I knew I had to lie. "No, it is just some costume jewelry." "Oh, it looks so real," she replied. "You have such great taste for someone on a budget." The entire night went on just like that. It was a non-stop series of small insults and passive-aggressive comments. Barbara interrogated me about everything imaginable, from the apartment I rented to the car I drove. She wanted to know how I spent my time and if I attended church. When I admitted that I was not very religious, she gasped loud enough for everyone to hear. "Oh well, Ryan was raised in the church," she said. "Our faith is extremely important to us." Ryan tried weakly to defend me. "Mom, not everyone feels the same way." He just kept going. "I am just saying it would be good for her soul, and for both of their souls, if they are planning to get serious." On the drive back to my place, I told Ryan his family was a little intense. "Protective of me," he said. "I promise they will warm up to you." Let me just say they never did warm up to me. We got engaged in June of 2023. Ryan proposed at the Botanical Gardens. It was simple, it was sweet, and it did not cost him a fortune. I loved that about him. He was not trying to show off. He thought a simple picnic with his grandmother's ring was the most romantic thing in the world. And he was right. The wedding was a small ceremony in September of 2023, with only 40 guests. I paid for everything, telling Ryan that I had saved money for years and wanted it to be my treat. The venue alone cost $8,000. I had spent more than that on a handbag the previous month, but he had no idea. Barbara criticized every single choice I made. My wedding dress was too modern. The flowers were too extravagant. The location was much too informal. Kept asking why we were not getting married in a proper church and what people would say. During the reception, she gave a toast that ended with, "Welcome to the family, Sarah. I hope you make my son a good wife and always remember that family comes first." The way she stressed the word family made her meaning crystal clear. She was talking about her family, not the new one we were creating. Despite all of that, the first year of our marriage was truly amazing. Ryan was everything I could have ever wanted in a husband. We laughed all the time. We took a few small trips, little getaways he thought I was putting on my credit cards. I took him to see places like Maine, Charleston, and Nashville. We began to build a life. For a little while, I almost forgot that my entire existence was a carefully planned deception. Almost. We were renting a charming little house. It had 3 bedrooms, and was about 1,500 square feet. The secret Ryan never knew was that I actually owned the house through a shell company. I was basically paying my own company rent. In fact, I had bought the entire neighborhood as an investment back in 2020. Completely ordinary and simple. Handled my freelance business, which meant I would vanish into my home office for hours. Ryan thought I was writing marketing emails. In reality, I was managing a billion-dollar global enterprise through secure video meetings with my executive team. I honestly believed I could keep this double life going forever. Billionaire chief executive officer, and also the simple, loving wife. But then I found out I was pregnant, and my whole world was turned upside down. It was March of 2024. I had been feeling exhausted and sick to my stomach for weeks. A home pregnancy test showed a positive result. Did 3 more just to be certain, and they all said yes. I made a doctor's appointment, and the ultrasound changed my life. "Congratulations," Dr. Patterson said with a warm smile. "You are having twins." My mind went completely empty. Twins? I was not even ready for 1 baby, let alone 2. But then I saw them on the screen. There were 2 little shapes. 2 tiny hearts flickering away. I felt something in my chest just crack open. Tears started streaming down my face, a mix of pure joy and absolute terror. I was feeling every emotion you could possibly imagine all at once. Then the doctor added, "There is one thing I am concerned about. You have a condition known as placenta previa. It means the placenta is covering your cervix. It might fix itself as the pregnancy progresses, but for now, you are considered a high-risk pregnancy. You will have to take it incredibly easy. That means no lifting anything heavy, keeping your stress levels down, and getting lots of rest." I told Ryan the news that night. He was overcome with joy. He picked me up and spun me around in a circle, then set me down gently when I reminded him I was high risk. "Twins," he kept saying with a look of disbelief. "We are having twins." Then a shadow of worry passed over his face. "Wait a second, can we afford this? Daycare for 2 babies is unbelievably expensive." I tried to calm him down. "We will find a way," I promised. I was so close to telling him everything in that moment, to letting him know that money would never be an issue for us. But the old fears stopped me. What if he changed? What if he started to see me as something different? So once again, I kept my secret hidden. We shared the news with his family 2 weeks later. It was during Sunday dinner at the Mitchell's house. Barbara had made her usual pot roast. We waited until everyone was done with their meal. "Mom, Melissa, Sarah and I have something to tell you," Ryan announced. "We are having twins." Came next was deafening. Tom finally cracked a smile and said, "Congratulations." Melissa's face went white before she forced a weak smile. "Oh wow, that is just great news." Barbara set her fork down on her plate very slowly and deliberately. "Twins?" she asked, her voice completely flat. "Yes, we are so happy," Ryan started to say, but she immediately interrupted him. "How do you possibly plan to afford 2 babies? Ryan, your current salary can barely cover your house payment." Ryan tried to be reasonable. "Mom, I am just being realistic. Daycare costs at least $2,000 a month for each baby. Then you have formula, diapers, and doctor appointments. Have you really thought this through?" I tried to speak up. "We will manage." She then turned her piercing stare on me. "And will you keep working? Or do you just expect my son to support you while you stay home and play house?" Ryan jumped in. "That is not fair." Barbara's voice started to get louder. "Not fair is trapping my son with 2 babies, when you can barely take care of yourself." Her words felt like a slap across my face. "I am sorry." I could feel my own voice trembling. "You heard me," she fired back. "The timing is just so convenient. You marry my son, and in less than a year, you are suddenly pregnant with twins. You planned this entire thing just to trap him." Ryan immediately shot up from his chair. "Mom, that is enough, is it?" He shot back. "It looks like I am the only one brave enough to say what everyone is thinking. She is a gold digger who planned this pregnancy to lock you down." I was shaking with anger and humiliation as I stood up. "I have to go." Ryan came right after me. In the car, I just fell apart and started crying. He tried to soothe me, pulling me into a hug. "She did not mean it, Sarah. She is just shocked. She will get used to the idea." But she meant every single word, and she never did get used to it. That horrible night was just the start of my nightmare. 2 weeks after that awful dinner, Barbara showed up at our front door with suitcases. "I am moving in," she announced. "You have a high-risk pregnancy, Sarah. You are going to need some help. This is what family is for." I looked over at Ryan, fully expecting him to say no. He looked very uncomfortable, but all he said was, "Mom, we did not discuss this." "I'm your mother," she answered. "I should not need an invitation to come and help with my own grandchildren." And just like that, she moved right into our guest room. That was near the end of April in 2024. The next 4 months felt like a slow, deliberate campaign of emotional torture. She never hit me or even yelled. She was much smarter than that. She just took my entire life apart, one small piece at a time, in a way that was so subtle Ryan never even saw what was happening. First thing she did was rearrange my entire house. "Your kitchen is such a mess, dear. Let me help you organize it." Then she went through my pantry and threw out half of my food, saying it was not healthy enough for the babies. After that, she filled the kitchen with things I hated, completely took over all the cooking, and every single meal was something that she wanted. Came from my bedroom. "You need to sleep downstairs. The stairs are just too dangerous for you in your condition." She put me in the guest room, which was the smallest and coldest room in our house, moved into our master bedroom, claiming it was only until the babies were born. Then she began opening my mail. "I am just helping you stay on top of the bills," she would say with a smile. She started asking very personal questions about my bank accounts. "What if something happens to you, Sarah? Ryan should be on all your accounts just in case of an emergency." That was the moment I finally put my foot down. "No, my finances are my own business." Her eyes went completely cold. "What are you trying to hide, Sarah?" "Nothing," I said. "I just think it is important to have my own financial independence." "That is an interesting way to put it," she said. "Most wives have nothing to hide from their husbands." After that, she started answering my cell phone. She would tell people. My clients started going to my voicemail. Eventually, many of them just gave up trying to reach me. My freelance business was falling apart, but I could not explain that I did not actually need the money. She watched every single thing I ate. "That has too much sugar. That has too much salt. That is way too many calories." I was hungry all the time, but I started to feel scared to even eat in my own home. She was always making comments about my pregnant body. "You are putting on so much weight. Are you sure you are not eating for 3?" She would ask me. "Your face is so puffy. You have to be more careful. It is almost impossible to lose the baby weight after having twins." I was only 17 weeks pregnant, and I was starting to develop an eating disorder. But the worst thing she did was isolate me completely. She went out of her way to stop my friends from visiting. "Sarah needs to rest," she would say. "He is not up for visitors." When my best friend Emma tried to come over, Barbara told her it was not a good time because I was feeling sick. Emma texted me right away. "Are you okay? Your mother-in-law is trying to keep me away from you." I lied to her. "I am fine, just really tired. I will call you later." But I never called because Barbara was always there, listening to every single word and watching every single move. Time in my 4th month, around June of 2024, I saw a change in Ryan. I would see him looking at me with a new expression, one that was full of suspicion and doubt. He stopped being affectionate and he stopped sleeping in our bed. "You need your space to rest," he would say, but I could hear his mother's words in his voice. I would hear them whispering in the kitchen late at night. Barbara would say things like, "I am just saying, son, it all looks very convenient. You got pregnant so fast after you were married. It just does not feel right. And she is so secretive. Have you ever wondered what she could be hiding?" "She is not hiding anything," he would answer. "Then why will she not let you look at her bank accounts? What kind of a wife does that?" Melissa started coming over all the time. She had moved back in with her parents after her divorce. She was at our house every single day, adding her own poison to her mother's. "I am just worried about my brother," she would say, just loud enough for me to hear. "Sarah is so secretive. What if those babies are not even his?" I finally had to confront Ryan one night. "Your mother and your sister are poisoning you against me." "They are just worried," he said. "Worried about what?" "I have not done anything to be worried about." "Then why will you not let me see your bank statements?" he demanded. "Because they are private," I told him. "Because I am allowed to have some privacy, even though I am married," he answered. "Most marriages do not have secrets, Sarah." "I'm not keeping secrets," I explained. "I am keeping boundaries." There is a huge difference, but he just could not understand that. Every day, he got more and more distant. He started staying late at the office, coming home after I was asleep and leaving before I was awake. We were living together like roommates, not a husband and a wife. In early July, I started noticing strange things. There was a car parked on our street that was always there. I started to get the feeling I was being followed when I went to my doctor's appointments. I even saw a man with a camera at the grocery store. Someone was following me. I went straight to Barbara and I confronted her. "Did you hire someone to follow me around?" She did not even try to deny it. "I am protecting my son. You have nothing to hide. Then you have nothing to be afraid of." "This is crazy," I told her. "What is crazy," she answered, "is a woman who hides her finances from her husband. What is crazy is all of your secrets. What are you hiding?" I went straight to Ryan. "Your mother hired a private investigator to follow me." He would not even look at me. He was clearly uncomfortable, but he did not say one word to defend me. Instead, he just asked, "Did you give her a reason to be suspicious?" I was his wife. I was carrying his children. That should have been enough for him to trust me. "Prove it. Show me your bank statements." I said no. He asked me why. Could not tell him that if I did, Our whole fantasy of a normal life would be over. He would finally know my secret, and I was not ready for that. So I just stood there and said nothing. He took my silence as proof of my guilt. It was July 28th, 2024, and I was 24 weeks pregnant. I will never forget that day. It was the day my world almost fell apart. Put me on light bed rest. Just take it easy, Sarah, she said. Your placenta is a little low, and we need to watch for any problems. If you have any bleeding or cramps, I need you to call me immediately. But my mother-in-law, Barbara, had zero sympathy. Bed rest, she laughed. Women in my day worked in the fields until their water broke. Completely ridiculous. You are just being lazy. Later that afternoon, she came to my room holding a laundry basket that was overflowing. Take this upstairs, she told me. Dryer just finished. Tried to tell her, I am not supposed to be lifting anything heavy. She immediately cut me off. You are not a helpless invalid. Stop being so dramatic. Ryan was not home, and his father Tom was in his workshop. But my sister-in-law Melissa was right there, staring at her phone. I picked up the heavy basket and I started walking up the stairs. I could feel a sharp, pulling feeling in my stomach with each step I took. When I got to the top of the stairs, I turned to walk down the hallway. All of a sudden, Melissa was standing directly behind me. Oh, Sarah, she said, I needed to ask you something. And then she shoved me hard from behind. I stumbled forward, and the basket of laundry went flying out of my hands. I reached out and grabbed the railing, which stopped me from falling. But for a few seconds of pure terror, I was about to fall face first down 15 stairs. My babies and I were about to fall. I just held onto the railing, completely frozen in shock, while Melissa just stood there at the top of the stairs. Oh my gosh, I am so sorry, she said. Are you okay? You need to be more careful on these stairs. They can be so dangerous. But when I looked up at her, her eyes were cold and full of calculation. I knew right then that she had done it on purpose. She had tried to make me fall down the stairs. She had tried to hurt my unborn babies. I was in so much shock that I could not say a word. What? She said with a little smirk. It was an accident. You are just so clumsy, Sarah. Maybe you should not carry heavy things if you are not strong enough to handle them. That was the night the contractions began. They were sharp and they were painful. Ryan had to rush me to the hospital. I was so scared. Only 24 weeks. It was much too early for them to be born. I just kept praying, please, God, no. Dr. Patterson examined me. The babies are okay for now, she said. Their heartbeats are strong. But there have been some changes to your cervix. You are now at risk of going into labor early. I am placing you on strict bed rest. That means no stairs, no lifting anything, and absolutely no stress. When we finally returned home, I told Ryan exactly what Melissa had done. He just brushed it off. He bumped into you, Sarah. That is not the same thing as doing it on purpose. He tried to push me down those stairs. He replied, you are just being paranoid. My voice trembled as I said, I am pregnant, and your sister just tried to harm your unborn children. Barbara must have been listening from the other room because she burst in. Melissa would never do such a thing. How dare you accuse her of something so horrible? You fell because you were not watching where you were going. It is about time you took some responsibility for your own clumsiness. I looked at Ryan, begging with my eyes for him to support me, to be my husband. He simply looked away. Here that night, alone in our bedroom, I cried until I could not breathe. And then I stopped crying. One Barbara knew nothing about. I called my best friend, Emma. I need you to install hidden cameras all over this house. Model. I whispered to Emma over the phone. I need them in every room, except the bathrooms and bedrooms. I need audio recording too. Can you get it done tomorrow while they are all at church? Emma sounded worried, asking, Sarah, what is going on? Please just do it. The next morning, a Sunday, while the entire Mitchell family was at worship, a discreet team of installers arrived at the house. They placed cameras and listening devices everywhere, hiding them in the living room, the kitchen, the dining room, and all the hallways. They were cleverly disguised as smoke detectors, picture frames, and even electrical outlet covers. From that day forward, I recorded every single thing that happened. I was slowly and carefully building my case. By early August, I was in my 7th month of pregnancy and on strict bed rest. But Barbara still forced me to clean, cook, and serve the family. That doctor is just being overly cautious, she would say dismissively. You are perfectly fine. One afternoon, Tom found me in the kitchen. I was on my hands and knees, scrubbing a spot on the floor where Barbara had intentionally spilled juice and ordered me to clean it up. I was crying because the pain in my back was unbearable. I was 29 weeks pregnant with twins, and I was scrubbing a floor on my hands and knees. Tom knelt down beside me. Sarah, you need to stop, he said gently. This is not right. I looked up at him, my face streaked with tears. Then please help me, I pleaded. Please tell Ryan what is happening here. He nodded slowly. I see it. I see what Barbara's doing, and it has gone too far. A wave of hope washed over me. Will you really talk to him? Will you tell him what is really going on? I will, he promised. I am going to make this right. And I actually believed him. For the first time in what felt like forever, I thought I finally had an ally. I thought someone else could see the truth and was willing to help me. The very next day, Tom took Ryan aside to talk. I waited in my room, my heart filled with hope. I thought that maybe, just maybe, this nightmare was finally coming to an end. An hour later, my bedroom door flew open and Ryan stormed in. He was absolutely furious. "Are you trying to turn my own father against my mother?" he yelled. "What? No, I would never," he cut me off. "He told me everything. He told me how you have been complaining about Mom. He told me how you are trying to tear this family apart, how you want to push them out of our home, filled with ice." "That is not what I said at all. My father does not lie, Sarah," he snarled. "But you do. You have been lying to me this entire time." Finally understood. Tom had betrayed me. He had gone straight to Barbara and told her everything I had said. And then Barbara had twisted my words, painting me as the villain. A little later, I saw Tom in the hallway. He refused to even look at me. "Why?" I whispered. He just stared down at his shoes. "I am sorry," he mumbled. "Barbara told me that if I took your side, she would divorce me. She said she would take the house, the money, everything. She threatened to make sure I never saw my own grandchildren. Could not do it. I am so sorry." He quickly walked away, and in that moment I knew I was utterly alone. No one was going to rescue me. Not Ryan, not Tom, not anyone. If I was going to get through this, I would have to save myself. The private investigator Barbara had hired, a man named Derek Thompson, was following me everywhere I went. He was there at my Dr. S appointments, at the grocery store, and even on the short walks I was allowed to take outside. Of course, he never found anything, because there was nothing to find. I was the perfect pregnant housewife, or at least, the perfect prisoner pretending to be one. One day, I overheard Barbara on the phone, sounding completely frustrated. "There is nothing," she complained. "Absolutely nothing. You have to keep looking." There was a pause. "There has to be something," she insisted. "Nobody is this clean." But I was. At least, the version of me she knew, Sarah the copywriter, was. That woman was boring, broke, and completely faithful. In late August, when I was 32 weeks pregnant, I heard a conversation that made my blood run cold. Barbara, Melissa, and Tom were all in the living room. I was supposed to be in bed resting, but I had hidden a small recorder in my pocket, another one of my little secrets. I heard Melissa say, "The investigator did not find a thing. Maybe she really is faithful to Ryan," Barbara replied, "or maybe she is just very clever. But Ryan needs to see her for who she really is. He needs a reason to doubt her." Melissa's voice dropped. "What are you suggesting we do?" Barbara said coldly. "What if we create a reason for him?" Tom started to protest. "Barbara, you cannot be serious." He immediately cut him off. "I am suggesting that we protect our son, and we will do it by any means necessary." I felt a wave of nausea. They were planning to frame me for something. I just did not know what it was yet. I know I should have left right then and there. I should have grabbed my emergency go bag, called Emma, and just disappeared. But I was 32 weeks pregnant with twins, and I was scared. I was terrified of going into labor all by myself. I was afraid of the legal battles over custody that would happen if I left before the babies were born. And I was afraid that if I ran, it would just make me look guilty of something I had never even done. I made the decision to stay. That turned out to be the biggest mistake of my life. Melissa had a contact, a tech guy named Connor Briggs. He had been fired from Blake Holdings 2 years ago for stealing company secrets. Bitter, he was broke, and he was willing to do just about anything for cash. I did not find out until much later that Melissa had paid him $15,000 to manufacture fake evidence that I was having an affair. This was not just a simple case of Photoshop. Connor was an expert. He used real photos of me from my social media accounts to create sophisticated deepfake images. He swapped my face onto the body of another woman in intimate situations with a male model. The metadata on the images even looked real because he knew how to fake that too. He had worked in the tech industry before his life unraveled. But fake pictures were not going to be enough. They needed to build a more convincing story. So they created fake dating profiles using my real photos. They used a burner phone to create fake text message conversations. They even created false GPS data that showed I had been at hotels. Connor had temporarily hacked into my phone to copy my real location data, which he then altered. They had fake receipts from restaurants and hotels with my signature on them. Melissa had been practicing my signature for weeks. Even had a witness, a friend of Melissa's named Ashley, who was prepared to lie and say she had seen me with another man. It was an elaborate, expensive, and cold-hearted plan. They were building a case designed to completely destroy me. On September 15th, I was 35 weeks pregnant. I felt enormous. I was exhausted and in constant pain. Felt like the babies were resting on every one of my internal organs. I could not get any sleep. I could not even walk more than 20 feet without needing to stop and sit down. That evening, Barbara walked into my room. She was holding her phone, and her face was lit up with a look of triumph. "We are going to have a family meeting right now," she announced. I told her I was tired, but she just said, "Now, Sarah." Brian was called home from his office. Tom was brought in from his workshop. Melissa came out of her room. They had me sit in a chair in the middle of the living room, like I was on trial. Barbara held up her phone. "The private investigator sent his final report over today," she said. My heart began to race, and he found something very interesting. He started scrolling through photos. They were pictures of me, but not really me. It looked like me in a hotel room with a man I had never seen before in my life. Pictures showed me kissing him, in bed with him. "What is that?" I whispered. Barbara said with a smile, "It is proof that you have been cheating on my son." I shook my head. "Those are not real. Those are fake." Melissa then chimed in, "Oh, there is more." She showed me her phone. It had screenshots from dating apps like OkCupid, Tinder, and Bumble. They all used my pictures and my name. There were even explicit messages sent to different men. I have never used those apps in my life. Printout in Ryan's hand showed my phone's location data. It claimed I was at the downtown Marriott 7 times over the last 4 months, he said. "You told me those were doctor's appointments." I insisted they were. "These are fakes," I pleaded. "Someone must have created them." Barbara spoke softly, saying, "There was a witness, a woman named Ashley Clark, who works at the hotel." My world started to spin. She claimed she saw me with another man not just once, but several times, and she was certain it was me. They had a response for every question. Their story was airtight. It was also a complete fabrication. I stood up to go to my husband. "Ryan, please," I begged. He flinched and took a step away from me. "Do not," he said, his voice cold. "Do not touch me." Pleaded with him. "Those pictures are fake. They were made on a computer with special software. Please, just look at them again, more closely." He answered, his voice hollow. I have looked at all of it. Photos, the text messages, everything. Proof is undeniable, Sarah. It is all made up." I screamed, my voice rising with panic. "Your mother and your sister are framing me. They want me out of your life. They paid someone to create all of this." Barbara spoke in a deceptively calm voice. "Listen to yourself. You sound completely unhinged. You sound paranoid. Maybe the pregnancy hormones are affecting your judgment." "I am not crazy," I shot back. "I am being set up." Brian would not even look me in the eye. "I want a DNA test after the babies are born," he continued. "Until we have proof that they are my children, I do not want you anywhere near me. They are your sons." He finally met my eyes, and they were filled with pure disgust. "Are they?" he asked. "Because right now, Sarah, I have no idea what is real. I do not know who you are. I'm not sure I ever did." Then he turned and simply walked away. Barbara just smiled a smug little smile. Melissa was busy typing on her phone. Tom just stared at his feet on the floor. I was left standing alone, 8 months pregnant. They had branded me a cheater, a liar, and an unfaithful wife. I had absolutely no way to prove my innocence. The evidence they had created was perfect. It was 100% fake, but it was flawless. That night, at 35 weeks pregnant, I called my lawyer, David Harrison. I told him, "I have to get out of this house immediately. I need a safe place to go, a security team, and I need you to draw up divorce papers." He said he could arrange everything within 48 hours. I told him he had 24. Packed a small bag with essentials and buried it in the trunk of my car, hidden underneath the spare tire. I had a plan. The next morning, the entire family had their weekly Sunday church service. They went every single Sunday without fail. My plan was to wait until they left and then drive to Charlotte. I would meet David and my sister Emma at a hotel. I would have my babies there, where I knew I would be safe. I just had to survive one more day. On Sunday morning, September 17th, I listened from my room as they all prepared for church. I heard the front door open, and then I heard the car engine start. I waited an extra 10 minutes, just to be absolutely certain they were gone. Then I got up, grabbed my purse, and walked to the door. Standing in the hallway was Melissa. My heart completely stopped. "I thought you went to church," I said, trying to sound casual. "I decided to stay home today," she replied. Then I saw she was holding something. It was my go bag, the one I had hidden in my car trunk. "I found this yesterday when I borrowed your car," she said. "What exactly were you planning, Sarah?" Just then, Barbara appeared from the kitchen, and Ryan came in from the garage. They had never left. "The whole morning was a trap. You were trying to run away," Barbara said, her voice dripping with accusation. "You were going to steal those babies and disappear. They are my babies, I replied. We will see about that, she snapped back. Ryan, call our lawyer. In moments, Ryan was on the phone. Barbara snatched my car keys, my phone, and my purse from my hands. You are not going anywhere, she told me. Not until those babies are here and we have the test results. And if they are not Ryan's, you will walk out of this house with nothing. No babies, no dignity, nothing. They dragged me down to the basement, to the unfinished part of the house. It was cold and damp, and it smelled like old mold. They had put a new lock on the outside of the door. It is for your own safety, Barbara explained with a sickening smile. You are clearly unstable, trying to run away with babies that might not even belong to this family. We are just protecting you from yourself. The heavy door slammed shut, and I heard the bolt slide into place. I was a prisoner. I was 35 weeks pregnant with twins, and I was locked in a dirty basement. I had no phone, no escape, and no reason to believe things would get better. As I sat on the cold concrete floor, I finally understood their evil plan. They would keep me here until the babies were born. Then they would take my children from me and throw me out into the street. And there was absolutely nothing I could do to stop them. This was my life now. It was the third time I had ever felt such total and complete despair. I was helpless with no way out. On September 24th, at 3 in the morning, I was now 37 weeks pregnant. I woke up on the basement floor with a sharp, burning pain. It was a contraction. A real one. They were coming every 3 minutes. I had been having false labor pains for weeks, but this was completely different. This was happening. I was trapped in a basement, and I was about to give birth by myself. I started to scream for help. I beat my fists against the wooden door. Help, I yelled. Somebody please help me. The babies are coming. There was only silence. I could not hear a single sound from the house above. I screamed louder, pounding on the door with all my strength. Please, I am in labor. Please, help me. Finally, I heard footsteps. The lock turned, and the door creaked open. Barbara was standing there in her bathrobe, looking annoyed. Stop all this drama, she said. You are not due for another 3 weeks. The contractions are 3 minutes apart. Gritted teeth. The babies are coming right now. It is just false labor, she said, waving her hand dismissively. You are fine. Go back to sleep. I am not fine, I insisted. Another contraction ripped through my body. I doubled over, screaming in agony. Barbara just stared at me for a moment. Then she shut the door. I heard the unmistakable click of the lock sliding back into place. She had left me there to suffer. No idea how long I kept screaming. Time had no meaning. My entire world was reduced to pain, terror, and the horrifying realization that I would have my babies alone on a cold, filthy floor. My babies could die. I could die. And the people upstairs did not care. Sometime near 4 o'clock, a memory sparked in my mind. I remembered seeing an old iPad in a box in the basement. It did not have a cellular connection, but it could still connect to the house Wi-Fi. I crawled across the floor, my whole body shaking as contractions hit every 2 minutes. I managed to turn it on, open the internet, and I typed in 911.gov. I found a feature to text the emergency number. My fingers trembled as I typed, I am in labor. 37 weeks pregnant with twins. High-risk pregnancy. I am locked in a basement. They will not let me out. Please send help. The address is 847 Maple Drive, Greenville. Please hurry. Hit the send button. I prayed that somebody would see it. I prayed that help was on its way. After 15 minutes that felt like an eternity, I heard the beautiful sound of sirens. Then I heard loud banging on the front door. It was the police and the emergency medical team. Open up, they shouted. I could hear Barbara's voice from upstairs. Must be some mistake, she said. An emergency technician yelled back, we got a 911 text from this address. Someone is in labor. Where is she? I heard more shouting, and then the sound of feet pounding down the basement stairs. The door flew open. 2 paramedics stood there, staring at me in complete shock. I was 37 weeks pregnant, lying on a concrete floor, in active labor, and sobbing uncontrollably. Oh my God, one of them said. How long have they had you down here? A week, I managed to whisper before another contraction made me scream. Ma'am, we need to get you to the hospital right now. They gently lifted me onto a stretcher. As they carried me up the stairs, watched as the entire Mitchell family stood in the living room. Barbara, Jay, Bean, Melissa, and Ryan were all in their pajamas, their faces a mask of pure shock. Barbara tried to lie to the police. She has been having some emotional difficulties. We were only trying to ensure she was safe. The police officer stared back, his face filled with disgust. You locked her in the basement. An emergency technician added, looking straight at the family, while she was in labor. He then turned to them and said, after we are done at the hospital, We will be filing a report with Child Protective Services. This is child endangerment. Ryan's face went completely pale. I ended up giving birth at Greenville Memorial Hospital. My labor went on for 22 agonizing hours. Ryan finally showed up at hour 16, and he was drunk. I could smell the whiskey on his breath from across the room. The nurse looked at him and asked, "Are you actually drunk right now?" He just mumbled, "I needed something to help with my nerves." He then looked over at me, his eyes cold and empty. "As soon as this is finished," he said, "we are getting that DNA test done today." I was in far too much pain to even think about arguing. Another contraction ripped through me, and I screamed, "You want me to go?" "Yes," I managed to force out. "Get out of here." And so he left. He did not come back. At 2:37 in the morning on September 25th, my son Logan was born. He weighed 6 pounds and 2 ounces, and he was perfect. Then at 2:51 in the morning, my son Lucas arrived. He weighed 5 pounds and 14 ounces. He was also perfect. I held both of them in my arms and just cried. They were so small, so absolutely perfect, and they were mine. "Hi, my sweet babies," I whispered to them. "Hi, I am your mama. I am so very sorry. I'm so sorry for everything you have had to go through already. But your mama is here. Mama has you now. And I promise you both, I will always protect you, no matter what it takes." The nurse came in and asked if there was anyone I wanted to call. "My husband was already here," I answered quietly. "He left." "Oh," she said, her eyes filled with pity. "I am so sorry, honey. Is there anyone else you can call?" I thought about calling my friend Emma, but my phone was still back at that house. They had taken everything from me. "No," I whispered. "It is just the three of us." There I was, sitting alone in that hospital room with my 2 newborn sons. No balloons, no family visits, and no celebration. It was just me and my boys against the world. I stayed in the hospital for 4 days to recover from my C-section. The babies were healthy but small, so the doctors wanted to keep us for observation. Barbara visited once on the 2nd day. She walked into my room, glanced at the babies sleeping in their little beds, and said, "They certainly have the Mitchell nose, but that does not really prove anything. We are still going forward with the DNA test." He never held them. He never asked for their names. He did not even congratulate me. He was gone in less than 5 minutes. Melissa sent me a text message that said, "I hope you and the bastards are doing well," followed by a smiling emoji. Brian stopped by on the 3rd day. He was sober this time. He just stood in the doorway, looking at his sons. "Have you decided on names?" "Logan and Lucas," I told him. He nodded. "Those are good names," he said. A long, uncomfortable silence hung in the air. "Ryan, do not do this. Just do not. We will get the DNA test done when you are back home," he said flatly. "Until that happens, I do not want to form an attachment to children who might not even be mine." And then he was gone. Later that afternoon, a hospital social worker came to see me. "Mrs. Mitchell," she began, "I need to ask you, are you safe in your home?" I wanted to scream no. At her, I wanted to tell her everything. About being locked in the basement, about the abuse, and about all the fake evidence they were creating. But if I told her the truth, what would happen? They would start an investigation. They might take my babies away and put them in foster care. I could not risk that. So I lied. "Yes, I am safe," I said. "We just have some complicated family issues." She looked at me for a very long time. I knew she suspected I was not telling the truth, but she had no way to prove it. "You ever need help?" she said, handing me a small card. "These are resources for domestic abuse." Put it in my pocket and gave her a small nod. I was surrounded by silence once again. On the 4th day, September 29th, I was discharged from the hospital. Called the house. "I am ready to come home now." Barbara's voice on the other end was sharp. "We are busy. You should take a taxi." "I just came out of surgery," I explained. "I have 2 newborn babies. A taxi is not possible." The line went dead. She had hung up on me. I had to call a taxi myself. The driver was a kind man who helped me buckle in the car seats I had bought before the twins were born, the pain from my incision making it hard to even move. On my way home from the hospital in a cab, as we pulled up to the house, I saw that it was completely dark. Not one light was on. No one was waiting for me outside. The taxi driver looked back at me, his face full of concern. "Do you need any help getting inside, ma'am?" I shook my head. "No, thank you." He helped me get the babies onto the porch, and I gave him the last of the cash I had. I watched his car drive away down the street. Then I put my key in the lock, opened the door to my own home, and walked right into a nightmare. Nothing was ready for us. The cribs I had so carefully picked out were still in their boxes, waiting to be built. There was no warm welcome, no one offering to help, just a silent, empty house. I put the babies, still in their car seats, in the middle of the living room floor. Felt like the only safe spot. Then, I started the impossible job of putting the cribs together by myself. It had only been 10 days since my major surgery. My stitches pulled with every single movement, and I felt dizzy from losing so much blood. It took me 3 miserable hours. Cried through almost all of it. During that first night, Logan and Lucas needed to eat every 90 minutes. I was trying to breastfeed, but it was a real struggle. I had trouble latching on, and it was so painful. I was exhausted, all alone, and in constant agony. At 6 o'clock in the morning, Barbara walked into my room. "You must be quieter," she demanded. "Your crying is disturbing everyone's sleep." "I am not the one crying," I said. "The babies are crying, and I am trying to feed them." "Then you need to figure it out," she snapped. "And when you are finished, the kitchen needs to be cleaned. There is also a load of laundry in the machine, and the living room is a disaster." I just looked at her, unable to believe what I was hearing. "I just had major abdominal surgery," I reminded her. She scoffed. "Women in my generation were back on their feet the next day. You need to stop being so lazy." With that, she turned and walked out. Holding my children as a terrible truth washed over me. They expected me to do everything, take care of the babies, do all the chores, and manage the entire family, all while I was recovering from a C-section, still bleeding, and barely able to stand up. So I did what they wanted. The days that followed were a painful blur. On the second day, I made breakfast for the whole family while holding a screaming baby. My incision felt like it was on fire. I was pretty sure it was getting infected. On the third day, Barbara slammed my bedroom door on purpose right after I had finally gotten both babies to sleep. They both woke up screaming. When I gave her an angry look, she just smiled. "Oh, sorry," she said. "I did not realize they were sleeping." On the fourth day, I was trying to pump breast milk. It took me 30 minutes just to get enough for one feeding. I had just filled 2 bottles when Melissa walked into the kitchen, grabbed them, and poured them both down the sink. "Oops, my hand must have slipped," she said with a fake, innocent smile. I stared at her, stunned. "Took me an hour to pump," I told her. "Well, I guess you will just have to do it again," she replied. "Or you could buy formula instead. You know, with the money that you do not have." He walked out of the kitchen, laughing. On the 5th day, we ran out of diapers. I asked Ryan to please pick some up on his way home. He never did. He said he forgot. I had to use old, torn t-shirts as diapers until I could get to the store the next day. By the 6th day, my C-section stitches were definitely infected, hot to the touch and leaking fluid. I knew I needed antibiotics. I told Barbara about it. Her response was, "You are fine. Stop being so dramatic." I had not slept for more than 45 minutes at a time for an entire week. I started seeing things, imagining movement in the corners of my eyes. I dropped a bottle, and it shattered all over the floor. I just stood there, staring at the broken glass, unable to figure out what to do. Ryan walked in. "Clean that up," he ordered. "You are making a mess." This stranger, who was wearing my husband's face, and I felt nothing at all. On the 8th day, October 7th, at 3 in the morning, I was back in the basement. They had moved me and the babies down there, complaining that our noise was keeping them up at night. I was trying to feed Lucas while Logan was screaming in his bassinet, completely out of control. My fever was up to 103 degrees. I was shaking, dizzy, and could barely stay awake. Both of my babies were crying. I could not recall the last time I had eaten a proper meal, had a full glass of water, or gotten any real rest. My gaze fell upon the water heater in the corner of the dark basement. It ran on natural gas. I could see the control valve clearly. It would take only 10 seconds. Just 10 seconds. The thought entered my mind without warning. It would be so easy. I could just turn the valve, lie down with my babies, and we would all drift away to sleep. It would be the end of this terrible nightmare. The 3 of us could finally have peace, together, far away from all of this pain. Logan was crying. Lucas was crying. I was crying. Every single part of my body hurt, completely hopeless. My hands started to move toward the valve. And then, Logan suddenly stopped crying. He looked right at me with his big blue eyes, the same eyes as Ryan, and he made a soft cooing noise. In that one small moment, something inside of me shattered. Then it instantly came back together, stronger than before. "No," I whispered to him. "No, Mama is not giving up. Mama is going to fight. Mama is going to get us out of here." I gathered every last ounce of my strength and began to hammer on the basement door, beat on it, and screamed for 20 minutes straight, without stopping, until my hands were completely raw and bleeding. At last, Melissa yanked the door open. "What is your problem?" she yelled. Then she saw me. She saw the high fever, the blood that had soaked through my clothes, and the screaming baby in my arms. For just a split second, Even she looked truly scared. I need to go to a hospital, I gasped. The infection, I think I am dying. Please. She ran and got Barbara. Barbara called 911, but she told the operator, my daughter-in-law is being overly dramatic about some pain, but maybe you should come check on her, for the baby's sake. For the second time in 10 days, I was in the back of an ambulance. At the hospital, the emergency room doctor was furious. He told me the incision for my C-section was severely infected and that I had sepsis. Could have died, he said sternly. Who has been checking on you? Where is your follow-up medical care? I just mumbled that I was too busy. Too busy. The doctor shot back, his eyes full of disbelief. You just had major surgery. Where are your relatives? Who is supporting you? The social worker, Mrs. Mitchell, appeared again. This is our second time seeing you in 2 weeks. On both visits, we have seen signs of neglect. I need you to be honest with me. Is someone hurting you? I looked over at my newborn twins, sleeping peacefully in the hospital bassinet. I thought about what would happen if I told the truth. Foster care, being separated from my babies, never-ending court battles. No, I lied. I just have not been taking good care of myself. I promise I will do better. Clearly did not believe me, but she had no proof. The hospital staff gave me antibiotics through an IV, watched me for 18 hours, and cleaned my incision. They told me to get some rest. Then they sent me back to that house, back to the basement, back to that living nightmare. 2 days left before they would throw me out for good. Those next 2 days were filled with the worst cruelty I had ever known, and I had no idea that things were about to get so much worse. It was October 8th, the 9th day of my son's lives. A technology specialist named Connor Briggs, the man Melissa had paid, delivered his final set of so-called evidence. It was filled with more deepfakes and expertly edited screenshots of my supposed activity on dating apps while I was pregnant. He created fake GPS records showing me at hotels when I was safe at home. He also included forged receipts and other lies. But the most evil piece of his work was a fake video call. Using deepfake technology, Connor had created a video that seemed to show me in a graphic video chat with another man. Looked 100% real. The skill behind it was as amazing as it was terrifying. That night, Barbara showed the video to Ryan. I had no idea this was going on. I was downstairs in the basement with my babies, just trying to survive 1 more hour. Ryan watched the video. His face went from pale to red and then to a cold, hard calm. I want her out of this house tonight, he said. What? Even Barbara seemed shocked by his voice. Tonight. I want her out of my house right now. He said it again. Her and those children that are not mine. Ryan, it is very late, Barbara said. I do not care. I want her gone right now before I do something I will regret. Melissa then texted Ashley, the supposed witness. Ashley immediately sent back a statement saying she had personally seen me at hotels on 6 separate times, confirming the affair. They now had everything they needed. Their story was perfect, unbreakable, and a total lie. But Ryan believed it. Or maybe he just wanted to believe it. It was much easier to think I had cheated than to accept that his own family was trying to destroy an innocent woman. I was feeding Lucas while Logan slept. Basement door flew open with a loud bang. The entire family stood on the stairs. Ryan, Barbara, Melissa, and Tom. They all stared down at me, their faces filled with pure hate. My heart started racing in my chest. I knew something was very, very wrong. Melissa spoke first, holding her phone out like a weapon. We know everything, Sarah. We have the proof now. The final proof. He played a video for me. It was a deepfake video of me, or at least a woman who looked exactly like me, on a video call with a man I had never seen. The woman in the video was doing things and saying words I would never, ever say. That is not me, I stammered. That is a fake, computer-generated. Barbara started screaming at me. Liar. We have witnesses. We have all the proof we need. We know you were cheating on my son your entire pregnancy. Melissa then pointed a shaking finger at Logan and Lucas. Those babies are not even Mitchell's. You brought illegitimate children into this family's home. You have lied to all of us. Ryan's face was like a mask made of stone, cold, and without any feeling. I want a DNA test. Right now. Please, you have to listen to me, I begged. Look at those videos again. Look closely. They are deepfakes. Someone is framing me. Barbara laughed, a cruel, harsh sound. Do you really think there is some big conspiracy against you? Do you think we are all crazy? Maybe, just maybe, you are a cheater and a liar. Tom, who had been quiet this whole time, finally spoke up. Ryan, maybe we should wait until morning to figure this out. No, Ryan said, and his voice was final. I want her out tonight. I held Logan tighter and instinctively moved to protect the bassinet where Lucas was sleeping. It is the middle of the night, I pleaded. It is freezing outside. These are newborn babies. Newborns. Please, Ryan, whatever you think I did, do not punish them for it. Melissa started to walk toward the bassinet. Maybe we should keep them, she suggested. We can get the DNA test. If they are Mitchell's, then they belong here. But she needs to go. Wave of pure fear washed over me. They were actually going to try to take my babies. No, I said, my voice shaking as I quickly lifted Lucas out of the bassinet. I held both of my sons in my arms. No, you will not touch them. They are mine. Barbara's face twisted with rage. They are nothing. They are the illegitimate children you had while you were sleeping around. Get them out of this house. Get out. She lunged at me, trying to snatch one of my babies from my arms. Spun away, using my body as a shield. Barbara's hand hit my face with a sharp slap. A loud ringing filled my ears. Ryan grabbed her and pulled her back, pleading, "Mother, do not." But it was too late. She had attacked me while I was holding my newborn sons. Tom opened the front door and a blast of cold December air rushed in. Temperature had dropped to 28 degrees. Out was the only word he said. I looked at Ryan one last time. This was my husband, the father of my children. They are only 10 days old, Ryan. 10 days. It is the middle of winter. Please, we can get a DNA test tomorrow. Please do not do this. For a second, I saw something change in his eyes, a flash of doubt, maybe regret. But then Barbara whispered something to him, and his face turned to stone again. He walked toward me, put his hands on my shoulders, and pushed toward the open door. Fought to keep my balance, holding my babies even tighter. They started to cry, sensing the danger. Begged one last time. He pushed me again, harder this time. Now I was on the porch. The wind cut right through my thin pajamas as my babies cried in the freezing air. Barbara appeared in the doorway behind him. She looked right into my eyes, and then she spat on me, warm and disgusting. "You are nothing," she hissed. "You are trash, and trash belongs on the street." The door slammed shut with a sound like a gunshot, one after another. Then the porch light went out. I was left in the freezing dark, bleeding and tired, holding my 10-day-old sons. For about 30 seconds, I could not move, could not think. I could not understand the nightmare that had just happened. My baby's skin was turning a scary shade of red from the cold. Their cries were sharp and full of pain. Could not feel my feet anymore. Blood was running down my legs. The incision from my surgery was throbbing with pain. I was sure I was going to die out here. My babies were going to die. This was how our story ended. But then something inside me changed. A switch flipped. I stopped crying. I stared at that house and watched the lights go out, one by one. My so-called family was going back to their warm beds, not thinking for a second about the woman and babies freezing on their porch. Cold, hard feeling grew in my chest. It was not fear. It was not sadness. It was rage. Pure, focused, ice-cold rage. Whispered to my sons, "Mama has you. Mama is going to make this right. I promise you, they will pay for this. Every single one of them will pay." Carefully moved both babies into one arm. With my free hand, I took my emergency phone out of the diaper bag. This was the phone they did not know about. My real phone, connected to my real life. I dialed one number. "David, it is me. I am ready. Come and get us. It is time." "Sarah, what is going on? Where are you?" 847 Maple Drive. "We are outside. They threw us out of the house, me and the babies. We are freezing to death. Please hurry. I am 5 minutes away. Just hold on." I ended the call and wrapped myself completely around my sons, trying to protect them from the cold. Whispered to them, "Logan, Lucas, Mama promises you will never be cold again. You will never be scared again. You will never be hurt again. And the people who did this to us are going to wish they were never born." A pair of headlights cut through the dark. Black Range Rover pulled up to the curb. Emma jumped out of the passenger seat. David got out from the driver's side. "Oh my God, Sarah." Emma was crying. She quickly wrapped a thick blanket around me and the babies. David was already on his phone. "I need 2 pediatric emergency medics at the Charlotte Plaza Hotel, Suite 4000 right now. 2 10-day-old infants have been exposed to freezing temperatures." They gently helped us into the car. The heater was on full blast. Emma took one baby and I held the other. Their crying began to subside as warmth returned to their small bodies. As we drove away from the house, I took one last look back. I saw a curtain twitch in an upstairs window. Someone was watching us leave. Perhaps it was Ryan. Perhaps it was Barbara. Small smile. It was not a smile of happiness. It was the smile of a person who had just officially declared war. "David," I said, my voice suddenly calm and icy, "I want you to destroy them. I want it done completely, legally, and permanently. Can you do that for me?" He met my eyes in the rearview mirror. Yes, I can." "Then do it," I ordered. "Spare nothing. Show absolutely no mercy." "What should we do about Ryan? He is technically still your husband." I looked down at Lucas, who was asleep in my arms, and then at Logan, safe in Emma's arms. My perfect, innocent sons, who had been discarded like garbage by their own father. "Especially Ryan," I said in a quiet voice. "I want him to fully understand what he cast aside. I want him to carry that knowledge with him every single day for the rest of his life." The identity of Sarah. Model. Copywriter died that night on that freezing porch. Catherine Sarah Blake, the Billionaire chief executive officer, was back, and she wanted revenge. We drove to Charlotte, which is about a 30-minute drive from Greenville. Charlotte was the center of my real life. We went straight to the Charlotte Plaza Hotel, to the very top floor. Owned the hotel, but the Mitchell family had no idea. David had booked the presidential suite under a fake name. When we walked in, a full medical team was waiting for us. There was a private neonatal intensive care unit nurse, a pediatrician, and an obstetrician gynecologist just for me. The pediatrician checked on Logan and Lucas right away. He said they are okay. They have some cold stress, but there are no signs of hypothermia. They are going to be fine. The obstetrician examined me and looked at my C-section incision, which was infected. This is getting worse, she said. You need antibiotics through an IV immediately. You are also very dehydrated, and you have lost a dangerous amount of blood. Mrs. Blake, you need to be in a hospital, I told her. I cannot do that. Not yet. I have some important business to take care of first. Looked like she wanted to argue, but then she saw the look in my eyes and just nodded. All right, but I am staying here to watch over you. Emma tried to take the babies, telling me I have them. You need to get some rest. But I could not rest, not just yet. David, I said, we need to assemble the entire team right now. 2 hours later, everyone was gathered in the conference room of my suite. David Harrison, my family lawyer, was there. My criminal attorney, and James Rodriguez, my corporate lawyer. Public relations expert, Marcus Webb, my private investigator, and Catherine S. Lewis, my financial analyst, were all present. I entered the room wearing a designer suit that I had asked Emma to fetch for me. It was a pearl gray Armani that cost $4,000. In that moment, I looked like a chief executive officer again. I felt like myself again. I addressed them. Thank you all for coming with so little notice. Known me as Sarah Mitchell. That person is gone now. I am Catherine Sarah Blake, the Chief Executive Officer of Blake Holdings, and I need your help to ruin the people who just tossed me and my newborn sons out into the freezing cold. I pushed a button on a remote control, and the large screen behind me lit up. It showed pictures of every member of the Mitchell family. Target 1, Ryan Mitchell. Target 2, Barbara Mitchell. Target 3, Melissa Mitchell Hartley. Target 4, Thomas Mitchell. Marcus was the first one to speak. Ma'am, I completed the background check you asked for 2 months ago. Here's what I found. He brought his findings up on the screen. Ryan worked for Hudson Property Management, a company my corporation secretly owned. He had $28,000 in credit card debt and a $15,000 online betting problem. Barbara was living in a house that I owned, completely rent-free, through a charity I personally started. He had stolen $127,000 from her husband's business and was hiding it in a secret bank account in the Cayman Islands. Melissa's little shop was in a building that I also owned. She was in $80,000 of business debt. On top of that, her ex-husband had a restraining order against her, and Tom's consulting firm was staying afloat because of contracts from my own vendors. He also had gambling debts totaling $45,000. Leaned back in my chair, taking in all the information. They are completely dependent on my money. Their entire lifestyle is paid for by me, and they threw me out into the cold. Patricia, my criminal lawyer, spoke next. I have gone over all the video and audio you gave us. We have absolute proof of child endangerment, false imprisonment, assault, fraud, conspiracy, forgery, and defamation. We can file criminal charges against every single one of them. James, the corporate attorney, chimed in, and from a business angle, we can fire Ryan, evict Barbara from her home, end Melissa's lease, and cancel all of Thomas's contracts. We can also report Barbara for embezzlement and have her offshore accounts frozen. We can do all of this legally, and we can start immediately. Angela, my public relations specialist, added, and I can make this the biggest news story of the year. Billionaire chief executive officer, living in secret as a housewife, is abused by her in-laws and thrown out with her brand new babies. The video and audio proof you have is absolutely explosive. The story will go viral all over the world, she finished. I thought about my choices for about 3 seconds. Do it all, I ordered. Do everything. I want them to wake up tomorrow morning and find that their whole world has been completely shattered. I want every move to be legal, fully documented, and released to the public. I want the entire world to know what they did to me. David looked at me, his face full of concern. This is an extremely aggressive plan. We could handle this more quietly through the courts. Do not want quiet, I shot back. I want them to be humiliated. I want them to be so utterly destroyed that their family name becomes another word for cruelty and stupidity. I want them to know exactly how it feels to lose everything overnight, just like they tried to do to me. Patricia nodded, understanding completely. Then we will start tomorrow, December 24th, Christmas Eve. That is perfect. Let them spend their Christmas in hell. On the morning of Christmas Eve, December 24th, Ryan woke up at 6 o'clock to his phone ringing. It was his boss, telling him to come into the office right away. He got there at 7 o'clock and saw the grim look on his boss's face. Ryan, Hudson Property Management was just bought by Blake Holdings. We are under new management now. They performed an audit on all employees. Your job is terminated immediately because of a serious violation of our ethics code. You were recorded throwing your wife and newborn babies out of your house into freezing weather. Blake Holdings has a zero-tolerance policy for domestic abuse. Ryan's face went completely white. How did they know? Who told them? Your severance package will be $0 because you were fired for cause. Security will now escort you out of the building. Ryan was walked out of his job at 7:30 on the morning of Christmas Eve. He had no job, no severance money, and no career prospects. When he reached his car, he saw an envelope stuck under his windshield wiper. Inside were divorce papers and child custody documents, along with a short note. The babies are mine. You gave up your rights as a father when you threw them into the cold. DNA test result was attached. It showed a 99.9% chance that he was the father. Congratulations, the note ended. You just ruined your own family. Signed, Sarah. He got sick right there in his car. At 8 in the morning, while Barbara was in the kitchen making breakfast, the doorbell rang. A courier handed her a certified letter. It was an eviction notice. The letter explained that her lease was being terminated because she had lied on her application for housing assistance. She had 72 hours to get out of the property. She called the property management company right away. There must be some kind of mistake. There is no mistake, ma'am, the voice on the phone said. The building was recently purchased by Blake Properties, LLC. Your application was found to have false information. You have 72 hours. Who is Blake Properties? She asked. I am not allowed to say, ma'am. She hung up the phone, her hands shaking. 10 minutes later, someone knocked on the door again. This time, it was the police. Are you Barbara Mitchell? Yes. We have a warrant for your arrest on charges of embezzlement, fraud, and money laundering. They put her in handcuffs and read her rights. Tom just stood there, completely stunned, as he watched them lead his wife to a police car on Christmas Eve morning. The judge set her bail at $100,000, an amount Tom could not possibly pay. He had to stay in jail. When Melissa got to her boutique at 9 o'clock, she found an eviction notice taped to the front door. The entire building had been condemned because of numerous code violations. All the tenants were ordered to leave the property immediately. She called the building's management office. What violations are you even talking about? The new owners did an inspection, the managers said. They found fire code violations, electrical problems, and mold. Commercial properties. She went inside to start packing her things and found another envelope. It was a civil lawsuit for defamation, fraud, conspiracy, and causing emotional distress. The person suing her was named Catherine Sarah Blake. The lawsuit was for $2.5 million. Attached to it were pictures from the fake videos, bank records showing the money she paid to Connor Briggs, and the text messages they had sent to each other. It was all there. She collapsed onto the floor. They had proof. They had absolutely everything. That morning, Tom received 3 phone calls. His biggest clients were all ending their contracts with him. Then, his bank called to tell him that his business loan had to be paid back in full. A company called Blake Financial Services had just bought the loan. In just 3 hours, Tom lost 80% of his business income and was now stuck with a 6-figure debt that had to be paid right away. He called, Ryan, something is happening. Someone is trying to destroy us. Ryan's voice sounded hollow. I know who it is. Who? Who is it? It is Sarah doing this. You mean your wife, the copywriter? How is that possible? I do not think she is a copywriter, Dad. In fact, I do not think we ever knew who she really was at all. They all gathered at the house, Tom, Melissa, and Ryan. Barbara was still locked up in jail. They met in the same living room where they had plotted against me, the very room where they had called me trash. Tom was the first to speak. Someone named Blake is taking us apart, piece by piece. Who in the world is Blake? Melissa whispered to him, Sarah's last name is Blake. The entire room went completely quiet. No, that is impossible. She is a nobody. Do you ever actually look at her bank statements? Tom asked a chilling question. Ryan, did you ever truly know her at all? Ryan's face crumbled. Oh my God, he whispered. What if we were wrong about everything? Melissa pulled out her phone and searched for Catherine Blake, CEO. The results filled the screen. There were Forbes articles, features in business magazines, and dozens of photographs. And there she was. It was Sarah. But in these pictures, She wore expensive designer suits. She stood in front of skyscrapers and accepted awards. The headlines were stunning. PropTech Princess Catherine Blake takes company public at 28. Billionaire CEO of Blake Holdings valued at $1.8 billion. Catherine Blake, the youngest self-made female billionaire. Melissa's phone slipped from her hand. Oh no. Oh no, this cannot be happening. Ryan snatched the phone and stared at the screen. He was looking at his wife, his billionaire wife, whom he had thrown out into the cold. This could not be real, but it was. Every single article, every photograph, and every detail proved it. Sarah Blake was actually Catherine Blake, billionaire CEO, and they had called her worthless trash. They had abused her. They had thrown her and her children out, his very own children, cast out into the freezing night because they thought she was nobody. Tom said what they were all thinking. We are finished. We are completely and totally finished. Brian looked down at the photo on the phone, or rather Catherine, looking powerful, confident, and completely in control. He had tried to ruin her. In doing so, he had given her every reason to ruin him in return, and she was only just getting started. On December 26th, 2 days after Christmas, an announcement was made at 8 in the morning. The CEO of Blake Holdings, Catherine Blake, would hold a press conference at 2 in the afternoon about recent events. The media was invited. National news outlets picked up the story immediately. CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, local news stations, business reporters, and journalists were all buzzing with excitement. No one knew what the press conference was about, but Blake Holdings was a billion-dollar corporation. Any press conference from Catherine Blake was major news. The event was held in the main hall of the Charlotte Convention Center. The hall had a capacity of 2,000, and every single seat was filled. I was in a hotel suite getting ready. Emma was helping me into a perfectly tailored white Armani suit. White is the color of purity and truth. My hair and makeup were done by professionals. I looked powerful, in command, and beautiful. The twins were in the next suite, with their nanny and a pediatrician. They were safe and well protected. David walked into the room. "You certain about this? Once you make this public, there is no going back." I looked at him, my resolve firm. "I am certain. The videos are very emotional. People are going to cry. The story is going to be everywhere." He nodded. "Good," I said. "I want it to be everywhere. I want the entire world to see what they did to me." Took one final look at myself in the mirror. This was the moment I would stop hiding, the moment I would take back my power. Let's begin. I walked onto the stage at exactly 2 o'clock. The entire room fell silent. Camera flashes went off like lightning all around me. I looked out and saw a sea of faces. They were all journalists with cameras and recording equipment. I walked to the podium. I adjusted the microphone and looked directly into the cameras. "My name is Catherine Sarah Blake. I am the founder and chief executive officer of Blake Holdings, property technology company that is currently valued at $1.8 billion. I am 32 years old. I built this company from nothing after my parents died in a plane crash 7 years ago." I paused to let that information sink in. I am also the woman you might have seen in videos that are now all over the internet. Videos that show me being kicked out of my own home at midnight on December 23rd. I was holding my 10-day-old twin sons in 28-degree weather. I was still recovering from a C-section. Videos show me standing on a porch, bleeding and holding my screaming newborn babies. I was pleading not to be thrown away like a piece of trash. The room immediately exploded with noise. Reporters shouted questions from every direction. I held up my hand. "Please allow me to tell my story first. Afterward, you may ask questions." The room became silent once more. 4 years ago, I met a man named Ryan Mitchell. Told them the entire story. I explained my choice to hide my wealth. I described the mistreatment I suffered during my pregnancy. I told them about the fake evidence, being locked in the basement, the birth of my children, and being thrown out of my home. As I told my story, the large screens behind me came to life. They showed hidden camera footage and played audio recordings. The audience watched in horror. They saw Barbara pouring my breast milk down the kitchen sink. They saw Melissa shove me near the top of the stairs. They watched Barbara lock me inside the basement. They saw the family plan how to create false evidence against me. They watched them confront me with it. They saw Barbara spit directly in my face. They saw Ryan push me out the front door. And they saw me standing on the porch with my babies in the freezing cold. By the time the videos ended, half the room was in tears. The other half looked absolutely furious. Continued to speak. They threw me out because they chose to believe fake evidence that I had cheated on my husband. They refused to even listen to me when I denied it. They chose to believe lies rather than trust the mother of those children. Paused, letting a heavy silence fill the room. What the Mitchell family did not know when they threw me out is that they were living in a house that I own. They were working for companies that I own. They were surviving on money that was provided by my generosity. Their entire life was funded by me. There were gasps and murmurs from the crowd. Ryan Mitchell was employed by a company I own, and he had no idea. Barbara and Tom Mitchell were living rent-free in a house I own through a charity program that I created. Melissa Mitchell's boutique is located in a building that I own. Their very survival depended on my kindness. I let that fact sink in, and they repaid my kindness by locking me in a basement, by creating false evidence of an affair, by throwing me and my newborn sons out into the freezing cold on December 23rd, just 10 days after I gave birth by C-section. I was bleeding, had an infection, and could hardly even walk. My voice became lower and harder. I am not a victim. I am a mother who will always protect her children. I am a CEO who will not tolerate abuse. I am a woman who will not be silenced or thrown away. I clicked to the next slide, which showed photos of Ryan, Barbara, and Melissa. Today, I am announcing that I am filing for divorce from Ryan Mitchell and seeking full custody of our sons. Criminal charges of child endangerment against Ryan, Barbara, and Melissa Mitchell. Criminal charges of fraud and conspiracy will be filed against Melissa Mitchell for creating the fake evidence. Embezzlement charges will be filed against Barbara Mitchell for stealing $127,000 from her husband, and I am filing civil suits for defamation and emotional distress. I am also ending all business relationships with the Mitchell family. Finally, I am making a $5 million donation to establish the Haven House Foundation, which will be a shelter and support system for abused mothers and their children. The room erupted into chaos once more. I raised my hand one last time. I am sharing this story not for revenge, although there will be justice. I am sharing it because abuse can happen to anyone. Wealthy women are abused. Poor women are abused. Educated women are abused. Closed doors in both mansions and mobile homes. You are being abused. Please know this. Document absolutely everything. Trust your instincts. Protect yourself legally. Leave when it is safe to do so. And please understand that you deserve so much better. You deserve safety, respect, and love. Never settle for anything less. Thank you. I walked off the stage into a storm of activity. Within 30 minutes, the press conference went viral. It was the #1 story worldwide, with headlines like Justice for Sarah, the Blake twins, Billionaire abuse, and the Mitchell family. In just the first 24 hours, the videos received 200 million views. Every network ran the story. Billionaire CEO hidden as a housewife reveals shocking abuse. A family throws out a CEO and her newborn babies. They had no idea she was a billionaire. Blake Holdings CEO shares a horrifying tale of domestic abuse. Think pieces and opinion columns flooded the internet. It was a social media firestorm. Tweeted their support. Oprah wrote, "This woman's strength is incredible." Reese Witherspoon added, "Every woman deserves better." Abuse happens in every community at every income level. Mitchells were trapped in their homes. Reporters were camped out everywhere, and their phone numbers were leaked. They received thousands of messages and death threats, which I made a point to condemn publicly. Ryan tried to go to the grocery store and was recognized instantly. People started confronting him. Someone shouted, "You threw out your own babies." Another said, "A real man right here throws his newborn sons out into the cold. Your wife was a billionaire, and you treated her like she was garbage." He ran from the stores without buying a single thing, but he could not escape it at home. Barbara, who was out on bail, tried to use Facebook to defend herself. He wrote, "She was deceiving us." Comments that followed completely destroyed her. One user replied, "So you abused a pregnant woman because she secretly had money." Another said, "She was not deceiving you. She was testing you, and you failed miserably. Those babies were only 10 days old, and you threw them out in 28-degree weather. You are a monster." The Mitchells became outcasts in their community overnight. Meanwhile, the stock for Blake Holdings actually went up by 12% after the press conference. Investors saw the story as a positive thing. A chief executive officer who had overcome great difficulty and showed strong leadership. I was interviewed by all the major news networks. I had a special on 60 Minutes, an interview on Good Morning America, and an appearance on The Ellen Show. I was on the cover of Time magazine. The headline said, "The CEO who fought back." I became a symbol, not just of money or revenge, but of survival, of strength, and of refusing to be silent. The Mitchells, they also became symbols. They became symbols of cruelty, of ignorance, and of what happens when you badly underestimate someone. Their names were forever ruined. 3 days after my press conference, on December 29th, the arrests were made. Barbara was charged with child endangerment, false imprisonment, assault, embezzlement, money laundering, and fraud. Melissa was charged with child endangerment, conspiracy to commit fraud, and defamation. Ryan was charged with child endangerment and assault. Tom was never charged with a crime. He cooperated fully with the investigation, gave a complete statement, and even testified against Barbara. Trials proceeded very quickly because the evidence against them was just so strong. The video recordings, in particular, were absolutely devastating for their case. During Barbara's trial, the prosecutor played the audio of her planning to create fake evidence. He showed the jury the video of her spitting on me. A medical expert took the stand to talk about the infection in my C-section wound, explaining how being forced to work likely caused it. Fire marshal also testified, describing the dangerously unsafe living conditions in the basement. The jury only took 1 hour to make up their minds. The verdict was guilty on every single charge. The judge looked at my former mother-in-law and said, "Mrs. Mitchell, I have been on this bench for 23 years, and this is one of the most disgusting cases of family abuse I have ever seen. You intentionally went after a vulnerable new mother. You put newborn babies in terrible danger, and you have shown zero remorse." Her sentence was 12 years in federal prison. The moment Barbara heard it, she started screaming, "That woman is a liar. She deserved everything that happened to her." The judge simply replied, "It was your own son who needed to be protected from you." Melissa's federal trial. A forensic expert from the FBI testified about the deepfake images. Connor Briggs also testified, but he had a deal for immunity. He told the court, "She paid me $15,000. He went on, "She told me to make the images look as real as possible." Text messages between Melissa and Connor were then shown to the entire court. Melissa had written, "Make her look bad." Connor had replied, "These will be very convincing." Melissa's answer was, "Perfect. I want her gone." Verdict was guilty. Her sentence was 6 years in federal prison, along with a $25,000 fine. During Ryan's trial, his lawyer tried to argue that he had diminished capacity and was under the powerful influence of his mother, but the prosecutor just played the video. Ryan could be seen pushing me out the door, his face completely cold and without any emotion. I was then called to the stand to testify. It was the first time I had seen Ryan since that awful night. The prosecutor asked me, "Mrs. Blake, can you please tell us what happened on the night of December 23rd? I stayed calm and collected. My husband forced me out of our house. I was only 10 days postpartum. I was bleeding from an infected C-section surgery. I was holding our newborn sons. The temperature outside was 28 degrees. Pushed me, then he closed the door and locked it." Prosecutor then asked, "Did he say anything to you?" He said he did not know if the babies were his. This was despite me telling him over and over that they were. DNA test the very next morning. But he chose to believe lies instead of trusting me. He chose not to protect his own children. Prosecutor asked, "And how did that make you feel?" For the first time, I looked directly at Ryan. I felt betrayed, heartbroken, and completely and utterly alone. Ryan was sobbing openly in the courtroom. The verdict came back guilty of child endangerment, but not guilty on the assault charge. The jury felt he had been manipulated. His sentence was 3 years of probation, mandatory therapy, supervised visitation only, and $3,000 a month in child support. The judge added, "Mr. Mitchell, your own personal weakness allowed the abuse of your wife and children. You were too much of a coward to stand up to your own mother. You chose to be loyal to an abuser instead of protecting your family. Hope you spend every single day of your supervised visits remembering exactly what you threw away." I also filed a lawsuit against all 3 of them for emotional distress. The jury awarded me $2.5 million from Barbara, $1 million from Melissa, and $500,000 from Ryan. I donated every single cent of it to the Haven House Foundation. I told the reporters I do not want their money. I want them to understand that their actions have consequences. I want other abusers to see what can happen when you try to bully the wrong person. It was a beautiful late spring evening. During that golden hour, just before sunset. My penthouse now has a rooftop garden, which I had built right after we moved in. Logan and Lucas are toddling across the lawn, chasing bubbles that Emma is blowing for them. Emma's daughter, Sophie, who is now 4, is helping them catch the bubbles. I am sitting on a wooden bench, just watching them. I am wearing jeans and a faded Georgetown t-shirt. I do not have any makeup on, and my hair is pulled up in a messy ponytail. I look at peace. Emma finishes blowing the bubbles and comes to sit next to me. "Are you okay today?" I nod my head. "Yes, it is a good day. Dr. Morrison says I am making progress. I am sleeping better on most nights. The nightmares are happening less and less. That is good," she says. We sit and watch the children play. "You know, it is okay to not be okay, right? You do not have to be the strong CEO all the time." I give her a sad smile, calling me strong. I do not feel strong at all. I feel like I am just being held together with duct tape and stubbornness. "That is called being human," she replies. "That is actually stronger than pretending everything is fine." Logan runs over, trips, and falls on his bottom. He immediately starts to cry. Go straight to him, pick him up, and check him over. You are okay, buddy. It was just a little tumble. Nothing is broken. Logan stops crying, wipes his nose on my shirt, and wiggles to be put down. Then he runs right back to play with the others. You are an incredible mom. You know that, Emma says. I watch my boys. Mom, I wake up scared every single day. I am afraid someone will try to take them from me. I am afraid I will mess them up somehow. I am afraid that I am not enough for them. That is called love, Emma tells me. You are doing it right. Car pulls into the parking area down below. Tom gets out, and he is carrying a shopping bag. I tense up just a tiny bit. Old habits are hard to break. Few minutes early. Should I wait? No, come on up, I say. Tom climbs the stairs to the rooftop garden. The boys see him and run toward him, shouting, "Pop, pop." He kneels down very carefully and gently. Hey guys, look what I brought for you. He pulls 2 small toy dump trucks out of the bag. The boys are absolutely delighted. He sits on the grass with them, playing and making truck noises. Boys are giggling with joy. Emma watches him carefully. She does not trust him. Never will. Are you sure about him? She asks quietly. He testified, I say. He told the truth. He is trying. And the boys deserve to have at least one grandparent who is not a monster. He enabled a monster for 40 years, she points out. No, I reply. But he is also the only one who showed any real remorse. The only one who is doing the work to change. I'm giving him the supervised, limited chance. Tom looks over at me, catches my eye, and mouths the words silently, "Thank you." I just nod in return. My phone buzzes. It is a text message from an unknown number. I know I should not look, but I do. Please. I know I do not deserve it. I know I destroyed everything. But please, just talk to me one time. Let me explain. Let me apologize properly. I am begging you, Sarah. Please, Ryan. I stare at the message for a long moment. Emma reads it over my shoulder. You going to respond? No. Good, she says. He wants forgiveness so he can feel better about himself. That is not my job anymore. My job is protecting my sons, and I cannot do that by letting their father back into our lives. He is the man who threw them out into the cold when they were only 10 days old. What if he has changed? What if he really means it? Then he can prove it by respecting my boundaries, by paying his child support on time, and by showing up to his supervised visits sober and prepared. He can prove it by doing the work without needing me to watch him do it. Delete the message without sending a reply. I do not hate him anymore. Feel absolutely nothing. And that feeling is freedom. We sit in silence for a while, watching the children play. Blake Holdings has since grown to a $2.2 billion valuation. I have been on the cover of Forbes 3 times. The Haven House Foundation now operates in 8 states. We have helped 2,847 mothers and their children in just 18 months, and we are growing every day. I personally mentor abuse survivors, give talks, and share my story. I have started dating casually, but nothing serious. I am not ready. I told Emma, maybe someday, but right now, my boys and my work are enough. Ryan works at a car wash for $15 an hour. He lives in a studio apartment in a bad part of town. He sees his sons once a month during supervised visits at a family center. At every visit, the boys cry. They do not know who he is. They call him that man. And at every visit, Ryan cries too. He is in therapy, which is required by the court, but he also attends because he says he wants to change. He sent me a 12-page letter filled with apologies, explanations, and pleas for my forgiveness. Never wrote back. He did frame one photograph of me holding the twins in the hospital, just hours after they were born, before our world came crashing down, before he tore our lives apart. He reportedly looks at that photo every single night, a constant reminder of everything he threw away. He will never find work in property management again. His name is toxic in the industry. Any background check immediately reveals his criminal history, the newspaper articles, and the online videos. He is now completely alone, a broken man forced to live with the choices he made. Barbara is currently serving the second of her 12 years in a federal prison in West Virginia. She works in the prison's laundry facility for 12 cents an hour. Model. Barbara receives no company at all. Ryan tried to visit her once, but she turned him away. Soon after, Tom served her with divorce papers, just as isolated. He mailed me a note that started with, "I am sorry. I was wrong. Please forgive me." I tossed it into the fireplace without reading another word. Barbara will be 74 years old by the time she gets out, if she lives that long. Melissa has already served 2 years of her 6-year term in a Kentucky federal prison. She lost all rights to her daughter from her first marriage. Her former husband now has complete custody. Her prison job is in the kitchen. She has tried to end her life on 2 separate occasions and is now kept under constant observation. She writes me letters filled with apologies every single week. I receive them, but I never write back. Melissa will be 35 when she is released. with no job, no family, and no future. Tom is the only one who stayed out of prison. He shares a small apartment with his brother and works at Home Depot for $13 an hour. He is allowed to see his grandsons once a week, but only with me present. He shows up with new toys, he reads them books, and he is always very gentle with them. The boys seem to enjoy his company and have nicknamed him Pop Pop. I agreed to this arrangement for one reason. Tom was the only one who showed any real regret. He testified against the others and made an effort to make things right. Tears well up in his eyes every time he looks at them. He tells me every single time he is here, "I am so deeply sorry for letting all of this happen. Do not give him my forgiveness, but I also do not try to punish him further. You stood by while something evil took place," I told him once. "You knew it was terribly wrong, but you chose to do nothing. You did try to help me even if it did not work. For that reason, I will grant you this. You can know your grandsons, but you will never ever have our complete trust." He simply nods his head and accepts the conditions. He understands it is far more than he deserves. The sun is starting to go down, painting everything in a warm golden light. Tom is walking the boys back toward me. "Thank you for today," he says. "I will see you next week." Then he leaves without another word. Emma is packing up Sophia's things. "Same time next week," she says. "I will always love you, boss. I'm not your boss anymore. We are friends." "Fine," she answers with a smile. "Love you, friend." They give each other a quick hug, and then Emma is gone. At last I am alone with my sons. Logan and Lucas are getting tired, rubbing their sleepy little eyes. "All right, you two," I say gently. "Let's go inside for a nice bath, and then it is time for bed." Logan whispers, "Story, Mama." "Yes, my sweet boy," I answer. "There is always time for a story." Then Lucas says, "Mama, stay." My eyes start to fill with tears, but they are tears of happiness and healing. Yes, Mama will always stay. Mama is never going to leave you, not even for a moment. I scoop both of them up in my arms. They are getting so heavy, but I can still hold them, carry them toward our home. People sometimes ask if I have any regrets about hiding my wealth. They wonder if I am sorry I married Ryan, or if I wish I had done things differently. The honest truth is, I do not regret a single thing. Every choice I ever made led me directly to this moment. They tried to destroy me, and for a little while, they actually won. Just 18 months ago, they left me completely broken on a cold, frozen porch. But there is one thing they never understood about shattering a person. You do not get to decide how they put the pieces back together. I rebuilt my entire world piece by piece. I became stronger, smarter, and I learned what truly matters. I am not the same woman I was before. Do not trust people so quickly anymore. My home is now protected by a security system that would make a fortress jealous. I see a therapist 2 times a week, and I take medication to help with my anxiety. Even now, a sudden knock on the door can send my heart racing. I was damaged, that is true, but I am not broken anymore. And there is a huge difference between those two things. If you are listening to this and you are in a dark place, I need you to hear me. I see you. 18 months ago, I was exactly where you are. I was standing in the freezing cold after they had taken everything from me. They stole my dignity, my feeling of safety, and my entire family. Truly felt like I had no power at all. I thought I had nothing left in the world. But I was wrong. I still had me. I still had my will to live. And I still had a deep, powerful love for my children. That was enough to start over. In fact, that was everything. Now, flash forward to tonight, and we are inside for bath time. My boys are splashing and laughing in the tub. I gently wash their hair, very careful to keep the soap out of their eyes. They sing their silly songs to one another in that secret twin language that only they understand. After the bath, it is time for pajamas. Logan always chooses the ones covered in dinosaurs. Lucas always picks the ones with little rockets on them. They pick them out all by themselves every single night. They are discovering that they are their own little people, learning they have the power to make their own choices. Then it is time for our bedtime story. I read Where the Wild Things Are. It is the very same book Ryan was reading to a group of children the first day I ever met him at the library. But this book is ours now. It belongs to me and my boys. We are making new memories with it, slowly washing away the old painful ones, where Max, the king of all wild things, was feeling lonely and just wanted to be somewhere he was loved most of all. Lucas is already fast asleep. Logan is trying his best to stay awake, but he is not winning that fight. I lean over to kiss both of their foreheads, turn on the nightlight, and pull their door almost completely closed. I walk down the hallway to my own bedroom. I sit down on the edge of my bed and pick up my phone. I open the Instagram page for the Haven House Foundation and start to scroll through the pictures. I see the faces of women I have helped. I see babies who are now sleeping in safe homes. I see families that are starting to heal and grow strong again. The foundation's official count, says we have now helped 2,847 families. My own suffering was not for nothing. It had a real purpose. It changed into a different kind of power. It was not the power I used to have, which was all about money and influence and being in control. This was real power. Power to change people's lives, to stop painful cycles from repeating, and to rescue others. I put my phone down and look at a picture in a frame on my nightstand, a photo of me holding my twins just a few hours after they were born. I look completely exhausted, but my face is also glowing with pure happiness. I won. My victory was not about them ending up in prison. It was not about taking away all the things they owned. I won because now I am free. I won because my sons are safe and happy. I won because I made the choice to fight for myself. I can hear the gentle sounds from the baby monitor, the calm, steady breathing of Logan and Lucas sleeping. That night on the porch was the absolute worst moment of my life, but it was also the real beginning of my true life. It was the start of a life where I did not have to pretend anymore. A life where I did not have to hide parts of myself. A life where I no longer had to make myself smaller just to make other people feel big. They threw me away like I was nothing. Phoenix from the ashes. Turn off my lamp, lie down in my bed, and close my eyes. Sleep comes to me much more easily now. The bad dreams are not as frequent, and the fear is not as constant. Tomorrow, I will wake up. I will kiss my boys good morning. I will make them breakfast, go to my job, and continue to build my new empire. More mothers and live my life. My real life. The one I chose for myself. It is the one I earned, and it is the one that no one can ever take from me again. My name is Catherine Sarah Blake. I am a billionaire. I am a chief executive officer. I am a survivor. But I am more than any of those things. I am a mother, and I am free. The next morning, bright sunlight is pouring into the kitchen through the huge windows. I'm standing at the stove making pancakes. The boys are sitting in their high chairs, talking to each other in their funny twin language. Logan looks right over at me and says, "Mama happy?" And just look at my son. Take a moment to really see his beautiful face, his complete innocence, and the total trust in his eyes. Yes, my sweet boy. Mama is very happy. Then Lucas holds his little arms out toward me and says, "Love you, Mama." My eyes fill with tears again, but this time they are good tears. They are tears of healing. I love you both, too. More than anything in the whole wide world. Lean over and kiss both of their heads. They both giggle, and their sticky pancake hands get all tangled up in my hair. I do not even care. Emma comes into the kitchen with coffee and hands me a mug. We stand there side by side, just watching the boys enjoy their breakfast. "It is messy, and it is wonderful. You really did it," she says quietly. "You know, you survived." I just smile. "We did it," I say, correcting her. "I never could have made it through all of this without you. So what is on the schedule now? You already got your revenge. You have completely rebuilt your life. You launched a whole foundation. What is the next huge mountain you are getting ready to climb? Look over at my boys. I look at the life I have managed to create. This safe, happy, and free life. Nothing," I tell her. "There are no more mountains to climb. Just this. Just being here with them. Just living our normal lives. That is enough for me. That is everything." Right then, the boys both burst into laughter over some secret joke between them. It is that pure, perfect joy that only toddlers have, and I find myself laughing right along with them. It is a real laugh, completely free and open. This is my life now. This is my family. And this right here, this is my happiness. Thank you for listening to my story until the very end. If it touched you in some way, if it made you think about your own strength, or if it gave you a little bit of hope, please press that like button and leave a comment to share what you think. What do you think you would have done if you were in Sarah's situation? Your story is important too, and I would be honored to hear it. If you have a friend who needs to hear this message of hope today, please share this video with them. And if you are new here, please subscribe to this channel and turn on the notifications. That way, you will never miss another story like this one. Always remember this: they might be able to break you down, but they never get to choose how you rebuild yourself. You are so much stronger than you realize. Our team has carefully researched, developed, and edited this content to bring you lessons and inspiration. Every story we create is made with the goal of helping you overcome the challenges in life and to find your own strength from within.